This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses.
So I think when the PRS came out, I'm not necessarily a John Mayer hater at all. In fact, I'm a big fan of a bunch of his stuff like Room for Squares and Continuum and all of that stuff. And I've found him to be quite an important guitarist for helping me transition out of like a pure prog and shred phase and back into some more bluesy, poppy type players. So that's for me what John Mayer sort of did in my early 20s, 18, 19, that sort of age, getting me out of like images and words and into Continuum. So, but the PRS Silver Sky came along, and I think a signature guitar in general can be kind of a little bit of a taboo thing in some ways, right? Let me know in the comments if you own any signature guitars, but it's one of those things that I sometimes see guitarists say, I'll never play a guitar with someone else's name on it, and particularly if it's a guitarist like John Mayer, who, probably there'll be a few of you in the comments who aren't even really fans of his. The Silver Sky, not necessarily a guitar that I was ever expecting to own one of, but when this came up used for £1,150, I kind of thought I'd take a flyer on it as being, in some ways, a little bit of a beta S-type guitar that I could take around in scenarios where maybe I didn't want to take my K-Line Blue, or scenarios where you need a 22nd fret, which actually is surprisingly useful for like gigging function stuff. And anyway, I'm going to do some playing now. The thing that I really like about this, number one about the PRS Silver Sky, is the Goldilocks kind of neck shape. So for me, there are a load of guitars where the necks might be too thick, they might be too thin, they might have a V shape, which then causes me pain 4 weeks down the line, or all of these sorts of things. Now, this is intensely personal, not going to work for everyone, but for me, the Silver Sky is just that perfect kind of a fairly chunky-ish neck that is going to allow playing for quite a long time without discomfort. Perfect for gigging in that regard, in that, for me at least, something skinnier tends to fatigue the hand a little bit more. The thing that people worry about with this, I guess if you're kind of a more low action type person, then the 7.25 inch radius is going to be maybe a bit of an issue. I think even Nitro on his guitars tends to go for 9.5 for playability reasons. I actually find the 7.25 to be really comfortable. My K-Line Blue guitar has 10-inch radius, but for me, I do really like the 7.25 for whatever reason. The other thing going on with this neck that I wasn't necessarily hugely aware of until recently when I did a comparison video with the Silver Sky SE was actually that this is a slightly wider nut. So it sits somewhere between vintage and modern type specs on the nut width. I believe that's the case. So you actually kind of have this kind of blend of vintage and modern specs, which make it pretty like, to me, kind of perfect, you know, where it feels comfortable, it doesn't feel squished, it's got like that nice vintage radius to it, but at the same time a neck profile which doesn't feel super thick, really nicely rolled fretboard edges. And yeah, just like I said, like as in terms of guitars that you can play for a long time, like I did a live stream the other day, and just super comfortable, and that's how I would in general describe the Silver Sky. You know, it takes a lot of cues from the Strat, some little things that differentiate it, well, quite a lot actually differentiates it, like all of these parts are actually original to the Silver Sky, but like the bolts for the trem go straight through the body, and all of these little parts are, you know, new designs. I don't necessarily love every aspect of it, but it tends to kind of look good in some cases, looks kind of plasticky in others. But the thing that I can't deny is that it actually plays so well that it's like at any gig I could happily pull this guitar out and my buddy Paul did play it briefly yesterday. He said it doesn't feel like a Strat. So in some ways I would say it feels a little bit more refined. Like not quite as stiff as a Strat. I'd say it sounds pretty Stratty to me. The only sort of negatives that I would say there are, the trem isn't for me super stable, but I've just kind of got this locked down. I don't really view this as a trem that I would use particularly. I've got it strung with 9.5 D'Addario at the moment, which helps to give it a slightly even slinkier feel, but it's got these fairly tall and fairly narrow frets which just are very comfortable. It is possible to, because of the height of those, intonate a bit worse if you kind of play with too much pressure. So it's worth playing with a bit of a lighter touch. And all of the pickup positions sound pretty good as well. All of these things, for me, make it, I think, one of the most attractive S-type guitars around the sort of 2,000 price, which is where you can get them at Peach Guitars like all the time, discounted down to $19.99. This one is Nitro. You can see there's this crack along it, which does look a little bit weird. It just leads me to believe that maybe over time this is going to age quite interestingly, which I'm kind of looking forward to. If I hang on to it for long enough for that to happen. But I think, yeah, for £1,500 you can get them for used all the time. $11.50 I paid for this. I think it'd be hard to find a guitar that plays anywhere near as good as this for that kind of money in 2025. Let me know your thoughts in the comments if you've found something that you think competes really well, and I'll catch you in the video soon. Yeah, just a little bit of video singing praises of the Silver Sky. Cheers for stopping by.